Good afternoon. Welcome to Arts, Culture, and Things in Between. Thank you for joining us. I'm so happy that as we wind down our summer, we are getting yet another opportunity to spend some time together this Sunday. So thank you for joining. I want to tell you a little bit about arts, culture, and things in between. This is a program that features individuals who are gatekeepers of our arts and culture. They are not only performing artists, but also teachers, advocates, and scholars who focus on the preservation of the arts and culture. When arts is mentioned, it's being referred to as the different art forms like visual, applied, or performing arts. Examples of visual arts would include painting, sculpture, and photography. For applied art, some examples would be architecture and designing, as in building or constructing a project. Fashion designing would be one under applied arts. And this has to do with working with different types of patterns and fabrics. Jewelry design would also come under applied arts. And this includes working with materials such as wood, plastic, metal, silver, and gold, in addition to working with various types of stones. How about furniture design, which has to do with working with various types of woods, the ways the woods are cut and designed. There is also performing arts. Some examples of performing arts are music, photography, theater, opera, drama, singing, stand-up comedy, and my first love, dance. So I've told you what arts is about. Let me tell you a little about culture. When culture is mentioned here, it generally means the way of life for a particular group of people. So for this program, it is inclusive to mean the various groups of individuals that embrace ways of life. In other words, looking at attitudes and behaviors. What is important to note is that as culture is mentioned, I'm really looking at how practices are passed from one generation to another. The last part of the name of the program, Things in Between. This has to do with life issues. The life issues that affect the execution of the arts and cultural practices. This involves both positive and negative experiences that become part of the creative process. Today's guest is a visual artist, and I will share the bio with you. Yaphat Jackman is a cinematographer born in Brooklyn, New York, to Guyanese parents. His parents took him to Guyana only after a few weeks of birth, and there he was raised. His education spans attendance to Sacred Heart Primary School and St. Joseph's High School, of which he's a proud alum. Yaphat was 8 years old when he discovered his interest in the arts. At that time, he watched an HBO trailer and began asking himself questions about how this is done. It was from this experience that his curiosity was nudged. He became involved in the First Assembly of God Church at that time, and that church saw the need for the creation of a children's Christian program. This developed program that focused on gospel for children was aired on the then GTV, which is Ghana Television, now called NCN, which is National Communications Network. It was through being a member of the church, Yaphat became a helper to the technical crew that included Michael Gordon and Nigel Abrams. At age 12, Yaphat, with his connection to Nigel Abrams, was introduced to Spotlight Productions in Guyana. Yaphat was a production assistant who helped with the cables, along with cleaning and managing equipment. From this experience, he gained exposure to many live shows. He learned how to set up cameras and how to prepare the stage for events. This experience set the platform for the production aspect of his learning. He was afforded opportunities to shoot stage productions, which turned out to be his passion. As a late teenager, Yaphat was hired as a cameraman for Guy Enterprise, an advertising agency in Guyana. A few months later, he was promoted to studio manager and became responsible for the oversight of general productions. His work at this agency required participation in international projects of World Bank and United States Agency for International Development, USAID. Following this stint with Guy Enterprise, he became a contractor with Guyana Telephone and Telegraph, GT&D, where he worked with the public relations and marketing departments in creating ads. He played a critical role in addressing marketing strategies while creating advertisements and producing any visual presentations required by clients. In 2006, Yaphat was offered employment overseas as a television editor at Carib Cable in the islands. He relocated from Guyana to St. Vincent in the Caribbean and was required to travel between St. Vincent and Antigua because of the company's location in these two islands. After 1 year, he moved on to work for St. Vincent and the Grenadines Broadcasting Corporation as a studio manager. He spent 1 year there before returning to Guyana. Upon his return to Guyana in 2008, Yaphat decided to attend the University of Guyana, a logical thing to do, considering the wealth of practical experience garnered most of his life. After completing his bachelor's degree in communication studies at the University of Guyana, he migrated to the United States, specifically to Athens, Ohio, where he attended Ohio University and earned his master's degree in fine arts with a concentration in cinematography. Since living in Ohio, he has worked on projects for Urban Movie Channel, UMC, which is an Amazon Prime video channel, and Prada Foundation. In addition, he worked for several television shows such as A Crime to Remember, Bronx Special Investigation Unit, A House Divided, and City Inside the City. To his credit, Yaphat has been a recipient of awards. In 2014, he won the first place in the Best Amateur Documentary category in a competition hosted by the Loyola Film Festival. Later in 2018, he won the second prize in the AT&T's 48-hour film challenge. As a freelance filmmaker, Yaphat has always had the dream to have his own business. In 2019, Bent Street Films, his media consultancy and production company, was established. Bent Street Films is a company that creates, consults, and advertises on visual works of interest. Currently, he is a freelancing cinematographer and a teacher at Columbus College of Arts and Design. Finally, Yaphat credits his parents for being principally responsible for his accomplishments. But before I bring him on, let's get a glimpse of Yaphat Jackman, our guest for today.
You see the stone where the builder refuse become the head cornerstone. One leap of fight we get just you and we alone. Just you and we alone. Them think I win, them I win when them see me don't fall. Tell them I'm build, man, I build, cause everything starts small. Years to come, them a go members say how we them used to walk past. Years to come, them a go give you the glory. Get a youth at last, I say years to come. You
Welcome, Yaphat. Welcome to Arts, Culture, and Things in Between. Are you as excited as I am to be here?
I was trying to match excitement, but I hope that I'm not a disappointment. But yes, I'm happy. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy.
Good to see
I
you.
might not be as animated, but I am happy to be here.
It's good to see you. I forgot that you had cut your locks, and it's like a new man I'm looking at.
It's right back to originality. That's
Oh,
all.
that's what it is.
This is what I used to be. This is who I used to be. So yeah.
Let me ask you, any particular reason why you go back to what you used to be, cutting the locks and all of that? Is this a rites of passage kind of thing? What?
I didn't have a 15-year plan for the locks, but I hit, what, 13, like 12, 13 years. But then apart from age, I also wanted, you know, a difference. I kind of wanted to change again. So I just went back to,
Wow.
you know, you get old, it starts to thin. So, you know, I don't want to be a Rasta bald head.
I am not having this conversation. My locks now 19 years, but I'm not going to say what I'm not going to. But you talk about the bald head kind of thing, you know. One of my youngest brother, actually, he was locking before I did.
Yeah.
And he started to bald, and we would call him half a dread.
Exactly. So I wasn't looking for that. I didn't need that. I don't need that.
Welcome, Yaphat. You know, it's so good to see you. You know, we just watched a collage of pictures of you at work, behind the camera, doing the thing that you love. I know that. What came to mind when you watched the slideshow? Just looking at yourself there, you know, that way.
Growth. That's that growth, you know. It's been a long time coming. This has been years that I've been, you know, working in this field, and then looking back at some of these projects that I worked on, and it's like, oh yeah, I did that. Oh yeah, I did that. Oh yeah, you know. So it's more of a reminder of how far I've come from, and just grateful that I was able to stick with it and to make a career out of it. It just wasn't a hobby. It, you know, it became a real passion, and then it actually became a job. So I was happy about that.
Okay, but the old people say that if you find something, and I might mess this up, so y'all don't come for me out there. If you find something that you love, you would never work for the remainder of your life, something like that. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I get the gist of it for sure. And yeah, that's you know, I count myself as pretty lucky to find and to really run with the thing that I love and that I'm passionate about, and I can make a living off of it. So I'm truly blessed to, you know, be in that lucky realm, if you want to call it.
Yeah, I want to take you back a little bit. In the bio, it's mentioned that your interest was piqued at 8 years old. And I could just imagine this 8-year-old Yaphat in front of a little television, watching this HBO trailer and trying to figure out what happened, right? What about this HBO trailer back then that you remembered fascinated you?
So this is the all famed story. It's kind of like my origin story now, where you know, I'm looking at this text that's just like this 3D text that's just floating in midair. You know, it's floating in the galaxy, wherever it is. And you know, initially I'm thinking, well, I didn't see anything in the news. I didn't hear anything in the news about this big HBO balloon going in space, or people going to go shoot an HBO balloon out there. So it really did you know, pique my interest. I got really curious about how to do these kinds of things on television, and you know, how am I able to see these images that I'm seeing on the TV? Like, who's responsible for that? You know, who makes this happen? And you know, how does it work? So I got really curious about the inner workings of television. And well, of course, with an HBO trailer, what I'm talking about is just this floating text. At first, it started with animation and graphics, And then I'm like, no, not necessarily my cup of tea. I don't, though I like it, it's cool, but you know, animation and graphics is not necessarily the thing that I want to do. But then I saw a camera, and then I'm like, oh, so this might be the thing that people use to record people and then put it onto TV. So I want to be that person that, you know, just this grabs all of this information, grabs all of this content, and like present that to people. So that was basically what it was for me.
You're going through all of this at 8 years old.
At,
8 years old.
pretty much 8 years old. That was what grabbed me at 8 years old.
You are ahead of yourself, I would say, at 8 years old.
I don't know. It was just I guess it was just raw passion, just raw passion to try to figure something out. And you know, my parents used to tell me back then, all I used to do was play. That's all I did. I just ran around. You know, I'm always with friends, running on the street, running at my neighbors, hanging out with my neighbors. Like I'm just not concentrating on anything that's work or school work or anything like that.
And look at you now.
Right. So I know we always talk about this from time to time. It's like, yo, whatever happened to that boy, that big play? I mean, I still play a lot. I like to play a lot. I play as hard as I work. But yeah, that's what it has changed for me.
So let me ask you, looking back, were you ever second guessing what you wanted to become as you grew up? Okay, so this grabbed you at age 8, you know, and you saw this, you tried to be as analytical as an 8-year-old can, given what's coming through the tube at an 8-year-old Yaphat. Looking back along your journey, have you second guessed yourself anytime along the way?
So let's talk a little bit more about 8-year-old Yaphat. 8-year-old Yaphat was very sure that however TV works, he wants to be a part of that. So I knew that I wanted to be working with, I guess, television, movies, whatever, however you want to define that. I didn't know exactly what that thing was, but I knew that, you know, this broad heading, this umbrella is where I wanted to be under. So as I grew and as I, you know, started to immerse myself with being around cameras and being around equipment, being around production and all that stuff, I was looking for where I fit. So again, I knew exactly this is the film industry, the movie industry, TV industry. This is where I want to be. I have no guessing about that. That is like for sure. This is where I want to be. But what or who in that realm was confusing for me. The fact that all I knew or all I was exposed to in Guyana at the time was just seeing camera guys running around, you know, videographers, you know, guys that would sit down and live mix TV programs, engineers, sound people, all of these things, you know, that I've been around for X number of years, learned, immersed myself with and all that, but I still didn't fit. I didn't feel like I fit into any one of these categories or any one of these positions in the industry until I bounced up with a camera. It was at that point that I realized, okay, this is the most natural fit for me. I wanna.
How old were you when you bounced up with the camera?
When I really bounced up with the camera, it was like 10, 11, around that time. Again, you know, everything was happening through First Assembly of God Church. I always talk about, you know, like I said, my origin story. Like it is because of these people and because of these institutions, because of these groups that were able to grant me access to the things that I couldn't personally get or pay for or anything like that. That saw developmental opportunities with these, you know, with this access, with granting me that kind of access. And then I just flew from there. Like I just grew from there. So yeah, 11 around that time, First Assembly was just starting to create a children's programming under the Children's Church Ministries, under the Media Ministries, and they were like, so who's gonna do what? I'm like, hey, all I want to do is stand behind the camera. I want to be behind the camera. This is all I want to do. Everybody else could go and present, they could go and moderate, they can go and act, whatever. I wanna record it. So that's what it was for me.
You know, I could just imagine this 10-year-old. Just imagine this 10-year-old who probably figure out that he knows everything that he needs to know at 10 years old.
Yeah, a lot. I heard that so many times over. Yeah, it's like, you think that you know everything. I'm like, I know that I don't know, but I know that I got a passion that you just give me 5 minutes with it, 10 minutes with it. I will know what I need to know and be able to teach you if I need to make it work. So I just had this huge appetite to learn and to like really dig into people that were I guess that were the leaders, that were knowledgeable, that were the professionals in this realm that I'm now discovering. So with my youthful energy, my passion and everything else that's behind that, I became an annoyance several times. I know that now more than ever, what that feels like, because as I'm now, this young budding cinematographer that's doing stuff out here in the US, and people reach out, people ask questions, young ones that want to be mentored, that want to learn and all that. And I'm like, wow, was I really like this when I was 10 years old? Was this cool?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a newfound passion and newfound patience and passion for that as well.
So am I on the right track when I conclude, based on what you've just shared with us, that there was no second guessing along the way?
Zero second guessing. This was film industry. I don't know what it is. I don't have the vocabulary. I don't have the definition, but this is where I'm going to be for the rest of my life.
And luckily for you, your parents were very supportive. You've given credit to your parents for your accomplishments. What were the roles of your parents in you being groomed and becoming who you are?
So this story evolves over time. Young Yaphat was always, I guess, pushed towards, you need to settle. You need to think about what it is that you want to do for this future of yours. You need to, I didn't get the typical Caribbean parenting of you need to become a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. I didn't get any of that. They did allow for more of an organic, pairing of what my passions were and what their dreams were for me. So thankfully, we worked along that line. But and everything in the industry, because there were several things happening for me. I'm starting, and I called it a production assistant because that's the proper term to use it for. But back in the day when I was running around with cables and all that, I'm just the boy. It's just the boy that's helping out, almost like the lackey. And so to go from cleaning and rolling cables and helping to maintain equipment, lifting equipment all over the place, to helping to hook up systems, to learning to switch live shows, to operating a camera, to so it just looked to my parents as though it's just like, okay, this boy, I know what you want to do. He's just jumping from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. But they always say hindsight is 2020. That looking back on that now, I'm grateful that I was allowed that space to learn these different categories and elements and positions within the industry, so that I could be a much more rounded filmmaker, a much more rounded cinematographer. You drop me in any situation, in any position on a set or anything like that, and I can hold my own. So apart from driving them crazy I'm not an academic. I'm not showing them that I want to be an academic or anything like that. I'm not showing them that I want to be working in corporate. Everything that I'm doing is a gig. Everything that I'm doing is part-time. Everything that I'm doing is voluntary. Everything that I'm doing is freelance. So like, who is this boy? Like, what is going on? So but it's paying off now. It's, all that labor. And I would always remind them, being the Christian parents that they are, you have to sow before you reap. So they're like, so how much sowing are you sowing? I'm like, listen, this reap that I'm about to reap is going to be explosive because of all these years of just sowing and sowing and sowing to make things work. So they've thankfully been patient with me. They've thankfully been supportive, not only in their prayers but in their finances. It's everything. And it is because of them that I'm able to now, I guess, operate and kind of shine a little bit in this career. If it wasn't for them, trust and believe. And with all of the back and forth, the tension, the arguments, the disagreements, and all that, they still had my back at the end of the day. So that's that encouragement that I'd like to give to Caribbean parents more so with their kids, that it may not necessarily look like the traditional thing that you would want for them, but there is a passion that they have and they would naturally be drawn to it. And despite what you try to do, they're just going to be drawn to what their gift is. And you just need to allow that space.
Homage to your parents.
Of course.
Yes. Well, let's take a look at some of your work now. How about that?
All right, cool.
All right. So for those of you who've just joined, I'm sitting with Yaphat Jackman, who is a filmmaker and cinematographer, and we'll talk about the difference between those two in a minute, but I'm just dropping filmmaker because some of us are more familiar with filmmaker than cinematographer, and he is our guest today on Arts, Culture, and Things in Between. Let's take a peek at some of your work.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of access. I've got this in the realest way. It's the new life that's open to me. These streets are made of dreams. These peeps have no clue. Man on a mission, cut from some clear decisions. New possibilities, new friends, new beginnings. Do you hear it? It's been a long time coming. Started from the bottom, now I'm here. Waking and walking in a dream that's now reality. It's not a place that's whimsical. It's a home where dreams live. People like you and I make them real. Can you feel it? I do this for my people, my home away from home. Do you hear that? Yes, it's destiny calling. My name is Yaphat Jackman. I am from Guyana, South America. I am right now a film student, an MFA film student here at Ohio University in the cinematography track. Coming to OU is a dream becoming reality. I've always dreamt about coming here, then I actually got here, so I'm living in sort of a surreal space for like a month. Walking on campus, I'm like, geez, I'm actually here. The first place that I actually wanted to go to, the first school here was Media Arts, the School of Media Arts. Then I met Eric Williams, I met a Vibrant Cambridge, I met Mary Rogus, and I started talking to these people, and they were like, why do you want to do the media school? You should get into film. Like, the film school is the school that you should be interested in.
So OU was always the umbrella, but then it shifted from media school to School of Film. Guyana has influenced pretty much everything that I'm thinking about to shoot, to write. Because I'm a filmmaker, am I just a maker for the Guyanese culture, or am I a filmmaker for, you know, the filmmaking industry? Who am I making films for? Am I just making films for people back home in Guyana? And I automatically isolate the rest of the world because these films are culturally based and that kind of thing. If you're not Guyanese or if you're not associated with Guyana, you just miss some of the things that are being telegraphed, you know, through the film. So while I do have the influences of the Guyanese culture, I am also influenced by what's happening in the industry outside of Guyana, and I'm trying to be that bridge. Born on Ben Street, used to run on the corner just like everybody else. Play football whenever I get the chance to play football. Field fish in the gutter whenever I had the chance to fish in the gutter. Run through alley, make trouble, them kind of thing. Run by the corner shop. Do all of that. Never really had the big prestige and all them kind of thing. The access, the big money. Never had it. But I had a dream. So the dream was this. I like TV. I want to see what going on TV. I want to make a film. I want to make a commercial. So I pick up a camera and I just run. If you feel like you the person that, you know, you want to make it in life, just run, follow your dreams, do what you gotta do, and make it happen. It you know, it's just not something that you're trying for. Don't bluff yourself. You can't bluff yourself. Believe in yourself, run in it, do what you gotta do, make it happen.
I love it. Yeah, but I have to tell you, I was having split attention here, right? I was watching what was being played and I was checking out your expression. Oh my gosh. Wow. I love it though. I love it. Let's talk about the first piece. The first piece was your master in fine arts profile.
Yeah.
Right? I know that your preference is to be behind the camera. So how was it for you being in front of the camera? That's the first question I want to go with for this session here.
I mean, you know, just even looking back at my body language and everything, it was so awkward. It was ridiculously awkward. Yeah, I am not made for being in front of the camera whatsoever. That's not my thing at all. But that profile, the requirement at that time as a first year student was that, you know, they wanted everyone to kind of know or to get a sense of what kind of student you are, you know, also to like show your personality in your work. So at that time, you know, of course, you're hearing spoken word at the back of that too. You know, that is also another dimension that I embody. So I figured it was literally me telling my truth. It was really the fact that I dreamed about this school, and you know, from the time that that bug was put in my ear about OU, I've just been working towards going to OU. And you know, I would never forget the very first day that I came to this state and I just set foot on this campus. It was surreal. It was so surreal. I would never forget that feeling ever. It is really accomplishing, you know, like manifesting a dream. So that just gave me all of the rest of energy and determination that I needed to just, you know, to push, because it's possible. It may take long, it may take some time, but it's possible.
Let me ask you, and this is an embarrassing question, I'm preparing you.
Oh boy.
So the first day you were on campus, did you find a quiet moment to be jumping around? Yay, yay.
Oh, no. So let me give you the real quick, the nutshell story of the first day on campus is where I would have just met my roommates. The Shah, who is from Iran, and Ming, who is from Vietnam. So black boy with an Iranian and a Vietnamese in the US, in Athens, Ohio, which is sort of a bubble away from the rest of Ohio, because this is kind of deemed more like a blue town, or majoritively blue. But however, we are like surrounded now by Republicans and people that are like innately racist. So we are looking for an apartment, and we had some, I guess, house viewings to go to as fast as we got onto the campus. So the very first house that we walk into has this huge Confederate flag. This huge Confederate flag on the wall. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm here in Athens, Ohio. You know, that flag did not resonate that flag had no meaning to me before, up until I was standing in front of it in a house next to an Iranian, next to a Vietnamese. And I was like, whoa, oh, okay. Yeah, we're here. This is your dream school. You know, it might not necessarily be all of the things that you dreamt about, but you know, I was still grateful that I got here. And I did do the celebratory dance later on, like when I got into my own space after all the trauma of standing and trying to negotiate whether we're going to be or live in this house that you know was.
So you did it, you said.
Pardon me?
Did the celebratory dance?
I did. I ended up doing that. I had to pinch myself several times.
Stand up in front of the mirror and all of that?
No.
I know, I'm pushing it. So what did you learn? Back to the profile. What did you learn about yourself by being in front of the camera?
That I was not made for being in front of the camera. You know, a lot of people think that I enjoy being in front of the camera. I really don't. I detest being in front of the camera. So even with this interview right now, this is like, you know, Dr. Rose is my friend. She reached out and she's like, hey, doing this show, would you like to be a part of this? Yes, I'm answering the call to my friend. Apart from the fact that I am in front of a camera right now, it's a different story. That and it also put me in the position of understanding what I'm asking people to do when I am behind the camera and they're in front of my camera, right? So I need to be, again, more patient. I need to be more understanding, you know, because unless you're trained to be in front of a camera, it's not an easy thing. So it taught me a new way to, or rather a new understanding of how I can speak to people that would make them less nervous, that would make them less conscious of themselves when they're in front of a camera, in order to, you know, to operate, to answer a question, to do an interview, you know, to seem natural and all that. So that's why I'm always, you know, I'm very corny. I don't think that I'm funny at all, but I always try to crack these zingers or something in order to lighten the mood, so that, you know, people can actually be themselves in front of a camera.
You know what? I think that's a really great experience, and I'll pull a parallel comparison, and I probably will be on the tangent for a bit. You know, going through grad school for social work, I had a similar experience as a social worker. They didn't mandate it at Fordham University, but they strongly encouraged that we get involved in counseling as a patient, as a client rather, because the backstory is that without that experience, it's unlikely that we would get the true understanding of how difficult it may be for clients who we will serve later on. And let me tell you, it was the best recommendation made, because I got to a place where I understood the importance of looking at each person in front of me as their own individual, as their own person, and speaking to them based on that, to get them to that space, that place that they feel comfortable talking to a stranger, AKA the therapist, AKA the social worker, you know, in a way that is helpful to the process. So I get that, what you just said. A really important way to learn. I truly believe that. So how has the experience of being in front of the camera helped with being behind the camera? I mean, you kind of sort of talked about that, because you know how differently to talk to people You know, maybe you get to a place where you began learning body language. Because what if you're dealing with somebody who is not articulate or who lacks assertiveness? They may not want to come out and say, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't want to do that. I feel uncomfortable. What are some of those, I guess, some innate, some traits, some characteristics that you had to really pay attention to in yourself as this budding filmmaker to make it work for you differently after that experience of being in front of the camera?
It's finding the language. It's really trying to connect with you know, your interviewee, your subject, whomever is in front of, or the group of people that would have been in front of your camera. Just finding the language, finding that common language for them to understand that, hey, this camera is just a means of you sharing this information. Don't think of this as this, I guess, intimidating device that is going to record all of your flaws or anything like that. You know, it's always been, hey, talk to me. Right. And I would like step away from behind the camera. I'd stand right next to it. You're talking to me now. So you're not talking to the camera anymore. And, you know, after a while, I always try to start with small talk. This was more in my documentary days. Now, you don't have that luxury in film or anything like that. But, you know, within the film realm, you're not really talking to people that would necessarily be nervous. They would have nerves, you know, because, you know, they're about to do something that they haven't done before. It's their first time in this context or whatever. But, you know, in the documentary, when I was in the documentary world, it was really, let's just chat. Let's have some small talk. Let's just sit here and talk for a while. The camera would be rolling. I would always be rolling my camera. Always be rolling my camera. But
are you rolling your camera now?
I have absolutely no reason to. At least the technical people that are here among us right now. Yeah, that was what it was for me. Just understanding that this can be nerve-wracking for someone, finding that language and really reading the cues. You could see it. You could see nervousness from a mile away. Sometimes it could be, you know, this nervous energy just guarded in or masked as cracking jokes all of a sudden, or getting really quiet, or getting sweaty, getting shaky, fidgety, whatever. So you can read those cues and just, you know, address them as you go along.
So let's quickly look at the other piece that we showed. Guyana on the big screen, the cinematic odyssey of Yaphat Jackman. I just love when you just broke out into Guyanese. I just love that. I just love that. But let me ask you, what's in the title, right? I want to know what's in the title and what stood out for you in that documentary.
So this was a class assignment for a really good friend of mine that was in the media school, Alex. I forget his last name right now, but Alex approached me. He's like, listen, I need to do this, and I really think that this would be great, seeing that, you know, you're from Guyana. There's not a lot of Guyanese that are here, even in the film program. Well, at the time. So, you know, let's talk. Let's do this. So I'm like, all right, cool. So they just asked me questions about what it was, and, you know, embody the title. I thought that was as grandiose could be. Like, what is all this, the cinematic odyssey of what a Guyana on the big screen? So I know that I rep Guyana hard. Like, you know, everywhere I go, if you don't know that I'm Guyanese, something is wrong with you. So it was good to know that these kinds of stories were being collected. And I really wanted to, of course, not just the fact that, yeah, people are going to get to know me, but more so they're going to get to know a country that is not necessarily known for its filmography, not necessarily known for, you know, the visual culture that we can bring to the big screen. So that is my mission, my personal MO, to really like recognize that. However, I first must teach myself. I first must understand the rules by which I have to abide by, and the rules that I can break, seeing that now that I've learned them and to understand the inner workings of the business, to understand the inner workings of the process, and to just make that grow. That interview also allowed me to reflect on, again, the growth, where I came from, why I came from where I came from, and where I was going to go with this career afterwards. And it was very deliberate breaking into the accent and all that, because he did ask me, it's like, what does a Guyanese sound like? So I'm like, we speak with the width of our mouth. So it was so hard. Of course, Alex is a white guy, white young man out here, and to have to just break into your Creole or your dialect or anything like that without being coaxed or without being prompted or anything, it was weird. I mean, even listening to the interview, I'm like, oh my God, wow, that was something. But it happened.
That's how we sound when we were among soul peeps, right?
Yeah.
And I must say to you, you repped well. You repped well. You repped well. Nothing to be like, oh my gosh, about.
Looking back at how funny, how awkward I felt just trying to, represent the accent, and within the space, like this is where we shot it, was like in the middle of the campus. So people are just walking all over the place. Not like I'm trying to hide the accent or anything like that, but to switch from proper English, like this is what I'm saying, I'm enunciating and all that. And then, this is what we just do, how we just go. This is how we just get it. If you want to dream, run for your dream and all that. So it was funny to look back at.
I'm sure Alex was thinking he was hearing a foreign language there.
Yeah, every single time.
But you were teaching, it was a teachable moment too. I'm thinking for Alex, and the mere fact that he came to you to ask you to highlight yourself, to highlight your culture, to highlight your country. I think it was on so many levels a way to elevate Guyana, which is one of your passions that we see through your work, and really present it to the world. So I think you did an awesome job with that.
I thank you.
Let's look at more of your work, and we'll talk some more. To those of you who've joined us late, I'm sitting here with Yaphat Jackman, who is a filmmaker / and he's going to correct me soon, cinematographer. And you're here on Arts, Culture, and Things in Between with Rose October. Let's watch some more of your work, Yaphat.
All right, David, let me go. Tomorrow is we big show. Remember, it's the story we telling, and every part we got for say. Bodegi, get the music ready. Let me start this jamboree. Music! Marco is the bond protection, clearing the way with special attention. Still, man, do your thing up there. Look out for any evil coming in. What a Sally is the planter wife. And you take a good look at she. She thinks she dress up nice and fancy, but she is just the Bam Bam Sally. There we go. Heel and toe. Heel and toe. Give me the music. Jump some more. Let's keep her in. Let me see, man. Ganja up on the balcony. He got money to throw down for we. Roll up your eye, bad boy. Roll up your eye. Humble.
You ain't past me, boy, huh? This is why working hard for.
Mommy, what you doing here?
This is your ambition for dance masquerade.
What's wrong with masquerade, mommy? David, boy, I'm sorry for you.
What y'all looking at? Y'all don't got nothing better to do? You want for dance on the streets, begging for money and shaming me?
But mommy, everybody...
Oh my goodness, you're on to arts, culture, and things in between. I'm Rose October, sitting with Yaphat Jackman. We just watched one of his pieces, Tradition, that he filmed in 2011. You know, Yaphat, I have seen this piece before, and I was happy to watch it again. And for those of you who know me, you know why, right? It's about masquerade, of course, a tradition, an art form that I totally love, I'm in love with. And this is really a struggling tradition and art form in Guyana in terms of survivability. I mean, there's so much work that is being done. I know that Guyana Cultural Association has done a 3-year project with the government of Guyana with respect to revitalizing masquerade. So of course, when I came across this piece again, I was like, we got to talk about it. We got to bring it forward. So how did you get involved with this venture? I mean, I just love it.
Yeah, so this was birthed from the collaboration between Ohio University and the University of Guyana when they were revamping the UG's communication program. So the School of Media Arts, along with partnership with the School of Film, came to Guyana when they were running all these, they were running workshops there, but for another 3 year, there was a 3-year or 4-year partnership that had existed between the two schools. And they brought one of their top-notch MFA candidates at that time, Brian Zam, and he taught us what I later came to learn over a 3-year span. He taught us, you know, the inner workings of filmmaking and storytelling in like a month or a month and a half or something like that. So it was a super crash course. He just like condensed an entire MFA program into that time. So of course we're looking for stories to tell, and at that point my strong suit was not writing. It was not directing. While I have a knack for it, it's not my strong suit. So I then had to find myself with I had to pair myself with a strong writer, a strong director, because I knew that my imagery, I knew that the cinematography skills that I could bring, that's the thing that would make, you know, make the circle complete in the film process. So Auntie Maggie, bless her soul, Margaret Lawrence, and it was a greater part of the Marundoi group when I really think about it, because it was Auntie Maggie, it was Ayanna Waddell, it was Richard Pittman that was a part of this crew, and we're all Russell Lancaster, all throwing ideas together as to how to tell this story. So this was Auntie Maggie's baby. She, you know, was very passionate and very hurt rather by the fact that masquerade, you know, was suffering pretty much in the country, and that culture would have been lost on us as Guyanese people if we didn't pay attention to it. So she found a very creative way to tell the story of masquerade and to kind of modernize it, to show and to also encourage young folk that would be looking at this tradition and, you know, not just think that it's just a bunch of disenfranchised youth or derelicts from the society or anything like that, that just came together, decided to hit a triangle, decided to play a drum, and decided to you know, dress up like Bam Bam Sali and just beg for money on the streets. Like, it was more, there was so much more to what we were looking at. And the only time that we would see it is around Christmas time or when it was around matrimony time. So, you know, the retelling of this story, that this was a smart young man that had his CXCs and all that. His father was a masquerade performer, and just to show people that this thing can go on, it can move on, but it just needed to be, I guess, repackaged in order for people to make it palatable for folks to be like, oh, okay, so now I understand what this is. Now I understand that this is not something to be embarrassed about. This is not something to be to shun away. This is something that we should pay attention to because it's a part of our culture as Guyanese. So that's how I got involved in that project, pretty much visualizing that project.
You know, I get the piece that sometimes we as country people, whether it's Guyanese, Trinidadian, because it's around the ways, it's around the region, that folk arts are struggling to stay alive, and masquerade is one of them. And I get that. I think as a female, as a woman, right, who in a minute I would dance masquerade in the street, I don't care. If I have to kick off my shoes and I hear masquerade, I am dancing masquerade because I know that my ability to do that showcases the fact that our traditions, our culture is nothing. They are nothing for us to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? I thought it was such a powerful story. And for those of you who are seeing the clip for the first time and hearing about this for the first time, please Google Yaphat Jackman on Vimeo and check it out. It's called Traditions. But I have to ask you this ticklish question. What knowledge did you have about masquerade before getting involved in this project?
Okay.
And don't be ashamed to say I didn't know much.
Oh, trust me. I was a noob. I had absolutely no clue what this folklore entailed, what this dance, what this tradition, what this. I had no clue. I had no clue what it was, and I came away from that project knowing so much and appreciating so much more now that it practically affected the way that I interacted with masqueraders after the fact. Whenever I would see them on the street, like I would like have to give them money. I would encourage them. I would take a clip of them, post it somewhere. Like, you know, I understood the names of the different bands that are in the country, how long Podigi, and I understand that he might have passed, I think.
No, don't say that. No, don't say that.
I'm sorry. But he was honored, like Podigi was honored, and you know, he was like paramount in a lot of the masquerade history that's in the country. You know, where the spiritual aspect of masquerade, where that derives from, you know, it, and I want to blow that story up to a feature-length film. So it was amazing, and I was so happy that I had that opportunity, and I wish that more people would pay attention to, you know, kind of these. Well, I feel like there has been a turn since this film, and all that the GCA has done, all that the University of Guyana has done, all that you know, Auntie Maggie has done to kind of lead the way as well to really restart the conversation about our folklore, about our culture, about our traditions, not only in masquerade, but in so many other things. Kwekwe, another one for me, as well, as you would know. All of these, it's just finding and kind of finding a way to help our traditions to transcend its time. Like, you know, we know of it from bottom house stories, or from hearing stories from our great grandmothers, grandfathers, whatever. But to now see it move from the street and to go to the big screen is, you know, a different way to kind of package our history. And, you know, this is timeless now. It's recorded, it's on film, it's on digital video, whatever you want to call it. So this can be something that can be referenced for as long as you keep that together. You know what I mean? It's you know, people can now break that into, or break into more of where this comes from. You could create documentaries from that, papers from that, journals from that, because there's a visual reference of this culture that some may not. Back then, you know, the only way that we remembered or kind of recognized what it was because we were live in a room seeing someone dance, or someone taught you the steps that you needed to do, or to be amongst the caricatures that were around you in the room, on the street, or something like that. But now we have a very different way now to interact with the culture visually, and it can transcend time. So yeah, it was a pivotal point for me in my career. That was the very first short film that I've ever shot, and I was most happy with the impact that it had on the culture, on people, on Guyana's filmography. And I'm like, you know what, this is what I want to. Of course, this is again reassurance, you know, a recommitment to what it was that I had committed to the very first time. You're like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And, you know, I would just want to keep doing it.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. So as the person behind the camera,
yeah,
what input did you have in this collaboration? In other words, did you ever get to a place of comfort despite your lack of knowledge, right, about masquerade? Did you ever get to a place of comfort where you were able to say something like, this would not work, you know, because of the lighting, or it's ineffective from that angle, or I don't know, what would, you get where I'm going, right?
I do. I got pretty comfortable very quickly, despite my ignorance of this, because it's now everyone is playing in my world. Everyone was playing in my world. I'm going to now make them look better. They're bringing something to the screen, which is amazing. So now you're coming to me now to make this even more amazing, because I understand, you know, or then I had this little understanding about lighting and all that, lighting, camera angles, and everything else. But I was deemed the professional in the room, you know. I didn't just run with that. This experience caused me the collaboration that I had between myself and Auntie Maggie. You know, this was the first time she's directing a film. You know, the very first time she's directing a film, and you know, and she's such an innate storyteller. So to now listen to her and what it is that she wants to portray, the emotions that she's trying to convey in the characters and all that. And now I have to translate that into the visual narrative, like the visual story. So I'm like, yes, this is going to work. This is how it's going to look. This is how we should do it, because this is what you're trying to say. This is what I can do with the light in order for you to get what it is that you're trying to do. So it was really a great back and forth, really open communication. And it was never me jumping on this like, this is how it has to be done, do as I say. It was always, you know, the collaborative effort, but they leaned on me, yes, of course, to visualize it, because I was the visual person in the room. So it was good. It was good.
So I know you didn't ask it, but I'll just say it, and I'm just gonna be biased like that. I think that's your best, you know, I think that's your best work, and you know why I'm biased to that being your best work for me, right? So I guess
wait until you see the other one that
well,
I'm still working on to try to get off the ground.
I hope it's Kwekwe.
It is. It definitely is.
I love it. I love it. Why you want to do that to me? Why do you want to do that to me? But you know what? I just want to openly say congratulations to our Guyanese culture alive. It's everything that you said in terms of posterity, longevity, and all of that, making this film and packaging it the way that you've packaged it. And while I tell you thank you, I want to big up Pataki, the only, well, I shouldn't, there is 6 foot, they're 6 foot from Linden.
Yeah.
Right, who also blows. They're the only two old timers, so to speak, who are, you know, there with the flute. And of course, Maggie Lawrence, thank you for always keeping our culture alive. And right next to your side, I know it's Russell Lancaster who was on that. I think I read Dr. Paloma Mohammed was also involved, right? Henry Rodney. I mean, yeah, I'm just dropping some names, which is a bad thing to do, because when you start dropping names, you have to drop names. I want to say, and everybody who was involved, you know, in the you know, it was a really good package on Guyanese Masquerade. So thank you. So let's take another look at more of your exciting work. And for those of you who are just joined us, I'm Rose October, and you're here with us on Arts, Culture, and Things in Between. The us I'm talking about is my guest also, Yaphat Jackman, who is, I'm just going to throw the fancy word right now, a cinematographer. Let's look at more of Yaphat's work.
When he drinks, he comes home every day. He'll abuse you, he hits you. He withdraw his money from you, so you become totally dependent on him. You don't have a job, you gotta wait till him pay his money. He give you, and then when he beat you, take it back.
There are always signs when emotional abuse is coming. Sometimes it can be very insidious, you know, especially not just young women, but older women too.
Oh, you call you a whore, that you're no good, and nobody else would want you. I try to do everything his way. Clean the house the way he wants, cook what he wants, do everything his way, but he still finds something every day that he has to hit you for.
And that is the objective of the abuser. And that's how they keep the hold of power on these women, as well as when it's reversed and it's men. They feel really, really alone, and they are isolated by their abusers. And this is done purposefully so that they cannot have anyone, no outlet to speak of their feelings, to speak of the abuse that they've suffered, whether it's actually physically or emotionally.
It goes really down to the basis of the relationship, how people resolve conflicts and so on within their relationship. Do they talk their problems through, or do they simply ignore their problems and pretend that everything is okay, only to, at some later point, realize that it's really affecting them? So that's where it starts, through the lack of communication.
When I tell myself I'm going to defend myself one of these days. So the school had a cake sale. So bake and so on. And I talked to the other girls, and my friend, she said, you must hit him up, because all the fights I don't hit back. She said, hit him up, and then it's when it's going to finish. And I said, fine, I'm going to hit him back. The next morning, there was just one phone. And you take the phone, and you turn it off and hide it, just you don't want you to use it, and go to work without it. So I went to the man, I asked him, I said, you took the phone? He says his phone. I said, well, when I get your phone, you mustn't auntie. That was the wrong word that I said over there, and he came upstairs back and wanted to hit me with the lunch bag that I gave him food. But I already had a rolling pin and a bottle of lime. So I said, I'm going to spray it in his face, I'm going to hit him with the rolling pin. And I did him just that.
It's been a cultural thing, a family thing especially. They would grow up seeing their mothers being abused, their grandmother being abused, being hit, being raped, for instance, by their fathers or uncles. And the two sometimes go hand in hand. And the fact that when they get married, if they're in an arranged marriage and they get married off, and they come back to their parents because they've been beaten by their husband, and the family sends them back and says, well, you know, your father did this to me. You just sit there, you grin and you bear it and you carry on.
Actually, I left and gone with my mother for a while. And he came, he brought his boss, his friend, and everybody, and asked you to come home back. Then he's going to change, he gets his relative and so to talk to you. I tell him on one condition, no drinking. The day that you drink, it's over. He paid for a month until he went to drink the one day. So he come home, I was at the gate speaking to one of my friend, one of my girlfriend. So I call him by his shirt and I smell his mouth. Because when I talked to him on the phone, he said, no, you ain't drinking. I know you didn't have to work. And you left from since morning, come back in the afternoon. You have to be drinking. When I got upstairs, he said I embarrassed him. It's I only smelling, nobody know what I was smelling. So I got like cutting up chicken and so inside the kitchen. And finding one thing after the other to quarrel about how I embarrassed him on the road and so. So he called my mother, tell my mother that he just went out and drink a little bit and I'm creating a scene over there. I said, I'm not quarreling, I just told you, I said once you drink once, I'm free to leave. I said, well, you blew your chance.
The moment they say, well, I'm leaving you because I'm tired of having this abuse happen to me, that I've had enough, that's more than likely when they risk being killed most of all. And you see it happening, you see it in the press, when the woman, she's suffered abuse, but the man has been cheating on her previously, and it is known to her. And she says, well, I've had enough. And that's when the worst attack takes place. But of course, they wait sometimes, and they wait too long in the scenario and in the situation. So what we try to do is encourage them to leave before it gets to that stage.
What happens sometimes with women is that you start the process. And when you start the process, you encourage them. Let's hold your hands and let's move along this path. But of course, sometimes you don't get them to come back. Over time, you would find that, let's say, for example, a woman is being abused and you encouraged her to report the matter. She would go to the station, even though she has been abused that much, and you're seeing symptoms or seeing signs of abuse. She would go back and beg.
Wow. Ugh. That documentary, Dilemma's
Dilemma.
Dilemma.
Yeah.
Very heavy, very heavy. Yeah. Because of the subject matter, the content. This was done in Guyana, right? I know that as a cinematographer, you're very interested in different aspects of life and the ways of life that speak to survivability, as in that documentary here on Dilemma's Dilemma. What moved you to get involved in this documentary about Dilemma's life?
Social issues, is always a thing, it's embedded in Guyanese culture. Well, in any culture for that matter. But for domestic violence, that has always been a pet peeve for me. Very close friends that have, been in abusive relationships, been harassed, been raped, whatever. Always things that troubled me. I mean, this and so much more that's happening in the society that are just vile, just really vile, like almost inhuman experiences, some of them. So to address something that was angering me, this was easy. It was a piece of cake. If I can find a way to empower or to really shine a light on such an issue, for it to become not just a conversation in a class or a conversation in a room of people that are watching it, but it can now become more of a national conversation, a more cultural thing, where we're being a little bit more responsible as men, as women, to ensure that we're protecting one another, and to provide opportunities to empower men and women, because this was affecting men as well. I didn't get to really delve into that aspect in that particular documentary, but we were lucky enough to find Dilemma and to have her be strong enough, more so as a Indo-Guyanese woman, to share her experience on camera. That's not something that you can get. I mean, that's we know the culture that we live in Guyana, and so that in itself was empowering, and to be able to now find experts to speak around that particular issue. And it was being very deliberate. The people that we're interviewing as well as the experts, that are people that look like them, also that would also give a sense of confidence, and to empower people to really speak up. So that was the main impetus. Apart from it being this was during my time at UG, and it was a class assignment as well. So deep conversations. I love deep conversations. I always want to be in the conversations that are pushing people to think past the box, not just to think outside of it, but to think past it. Like, is this even a box? You know what I mean? To ask these questions, and to truly get to the root of these problems, of these issues. So that's where that came from.
I truly applaud this, because domestic violence or intimate partner violence is a hard topic to broach. Although the prevalence is very high in Guyana, in the Caribbean regions, period. There are elements of control, abuse, fear on both sides. And while we're at it, let me just say, I want to put on my social worker hat right now and say that, domestic violence happens from both ends. It happens female to male. It happens male to female. We hear a lot about it, about male being the perpetrator because females report it. It doesn't mean that it doesn't happen as much from the other side. The issue with the other side, and research shows this, is that men tend not to report being abused because of the shame and everything else that happens with it. And then there is all of the dynamics that involve when the woman, reports it. She feels as though she needs to go save the man again. She pulls back the charges and all of those things. So what I'm doing here is really urging you to go and watch The Leaver's Dilemma. But at the same time, I think this is a critical moment for me to say as a social worker that if you know anybody right now who is in a domestic violent relationship, or if you who are watching you're in a domestic violent relationship, please seek help. No one should be subjected to this. And this is just me being as serious as I can as a social worker. But the other piece that I wanted to ask you about is, how was it for you hearing this story for the first time? Because it's really gut-wrenching. Folks, I know you haven't seen it. And I urge you to. It's really gut-wrenching because she actually got stabbed by her husband. She actually got stabbed. He looked her in the face and he stabbed her. I wonder, how were you able to hold your composure hearing this? Because when she said it, when I was watching, I was like, I felt it.
Yeah. I guess in the documentary realm, you become a little prone to these things, these kinds of stories and whatnot. I mean, the mere fact that you're exploring domestic violence, you kind of have to mentally prepare yourself for the absolute worst. Anybody can spring any kind of ridiculously tragic story to you, some heinous event that would have happened, and you just have to find a way to maintain your composure as you're listening to it. But that's not the one thing. For some, it's just the one time that they're going to hear it because they just recorded it, and that's that. But I also edited this piece, so now I'm hearing this over and over and over again in my head. So but it comes with the territory. It kind of comes with the territory. And not having a lot of social work experience or anything like that, I kind of allowed, because of course I'm working with the team on this, I'm allowing the ladies in our group to sit with her, to interview her, because this is something that is very, very heavy. You know, this is a kind of revealing that it's not easy for anyone as a victim, as a survivor. It's not easy at all. So it takes some guts. It takes some patience. It takes some composure. And you know, I think the bright side of it all is that she's out of that relationship now. She's flourishing. She's blossoming now, and you know, she has now, with the sharing of her story and us being a conduit to allow her that platform to share that story, has also now in turn empowered women to just up and leave these abusive relationships, and to recognize the cycle that exists. And that's really what the documentary is really more about. It's really more about the cycle that we keep perpetuating, you know, over time in our culture, the way that we talk to one another, the way that we interact. And you know, this is why we have the problem that we have. You know, it's embedded in our culture because it's been normalized, and we don't want to normalize that. We want to cancel. We want to cancel that culture as best as possible.
Yeah, I was thinking this was going to be a nice story in my head, right? Because she was so composed as she was talking, telling her life. And yeah, she, you know, I saw the tears and I thought, okay, you know, it must have been very difficult for her. And let me tell you, as a social worker who's worked at Department of Probation, in Department of Probation, with the mandated populations, Bureau of Prisons, Division of Parole, Department of Probation, ACS, EAP, the 9 yards, I've heard it all. I mean, I've sat with pedophiles, I've sat with people who described how they murdered somebody and went to prison rather, for most of their life, and they're out now and they're relaying their story. And, you know, I've been trained to not show emotions as they're talking. I could do that then. But when I heard the Lima story and she belted out that he stabbed her, for some reason, that took me off balance because I didn't expect to hear it. But what a powerful story. What was your takeaway, Val, from filming this from being a part of this documentary?
The takeaway is that I can help. You know, I can help to provide a platform for people that want to speak up, to provide a platform for folks that need that oomph, that just need that little push. You know, they just need to hear this story or something like that to really change the way that they continue to look at relationships, or to treat with being in within or around abuse. So my takeaway is that, hey, I can allow this. I'm giving this superpower to people that want to speak up, and you know, it can reach so many eyes and ears at the same time, and it could make an actual tangible change. So yes, providing that platform. Yes, I'm all for it. Yes, I feel like I'm doing my due diligence.
Without getting into details, I'll ask you a trick question.
Trick question.
What is your preference, documentary or film?
Ha! I don't know. I don't know.
Stutter. I.
It's because you know, the activist side of me loves documentary because of the way that it changes and really shapes society, culture, thinking. Film is the artistic side of me is like, okay, this is a great preservation of history, and you know, repackaging and all that is you know, you can play in whatever world that you want to be in. Very hard question. I don't think that I can put one over the other. If I had a preference, I don't know. I don't know that I have a preference.
Okay, all right.
Am I directing it or shooting it? Ask me that. Am I directing a documentary or a film, or shooting a documentary or a film? I choose shooting both at the same time. You know, that's what it is for me.
Okay, thank you. I did say it was a trick question, though.
That was hard. That was more of a fumbler. That was a tumbling question as opposed to a trick question.
All right, so we'll look at some more of your work. Again, for those of you who have joined us, thank you. I'm sitting with Yaphat Jackman, who is a filmmaker. And we'll look at some more of his work. Now, we've gotten a little joke in between us that we'll talk seriously about in a minute, but let's watch some more of Yaphat's work.
Happy birthday! Happy birthday, girl!
Have fun today. I'll see you tonight at the party. Make a wish, sweetheart.
A huge victory for the ruling party in Ghana. Anyone who has enriched themselves will have all their assets seized and their bank accounts frozen.
It is everywhere in the news. If they freeze our accounts, we're going to lose everything that we have.
Can't you see it? This is just a threat. You can't approach me. So they go through their bank accounts to force me to work with the US government.
Delmo, what do you want from me?
Government protection comes certain duties.
Your business with my father. I have no political interest in anything.
You have 1 week to decide if the American dream is yours to keep.
I think Dad's in trouble. What kind of trouble? Like another woman trouble? Or we're in danger and we have to move trouble? No, like money trouble.
You are on top of the world.
What are you talking about?
Yes.
If this is the world, then I am so far from where I want to be. From the son of the head of state and prime minister to this. I'm doing all of this just to keep from going crazy.
Think of all the dirty government secrets we could sell to the U.S.
Everything has a price.
Whatever it is they think I know, it is the key to my immigration status.
I hear stories that they are coming after you.
I still live with the massacre of the young men and women who formed a human chain to protect me.
We can divert the funds from Ghana to Panama and then to the U.S. Digital currency is the way to go. All crypto and no trace. They can't track you. They can't control you. They can't touch you.
People keep coming and coming, but when is enough enough?
Clap. I got clap.
America, you were the cinematographer on Journey to America. So folks, the little inside joke between Yaphat and I that I mentioned just before we watched this clip, this trailer for Journey to America, is about these two words, these two positions, filmmaker and cinematographer. You were the cinematographer on this piece, Journey to America. Before we go further, please explain to us, what is a cinematographer? What's the difference between a filmmaker and a cinematographer? Educate us now, please.
Okay, so a cinematographer is responsible for the visual of a film, a movie, an ad, whatever you want to call it. Principally in charge of lighting, of camera angles, anything that is the visual language of the film. That's the cinematographer. Principally taking care of all things camera, all things lights on set, also in control of the grip and electric department in the filmmaking process, and is the principal person that you go to for your end product of the look of the film, movie, ad, whatever it is. So anything that is visually presented is taken care of by the cinematographer. The filmmaker is more general. This is a person that can shoot, that can edit, that can write, that can also produce or self-produce their work. They're more of a generalist. They have a general scope of all of the elements in the filmmaking process.
Do you have a preference?
I certainly do have a preference in this. I'd much prefer to be deemed or referenced as a cinematographer as opposed to a filmmaker. Though I embody a filmmaker, my preference is cinematography.
I could see that, because if you were responsible kind of sort of for the end product, right? And this is what
look of the end product.
Well, the look of the end product. Yeah. Well, thank you for correcting me, Mr. Cinematographer. But I can see that in terms of how it really plays out in paying attention, because I kind of sort of knew before asking you, after you mentioned to me that there is a difference. Of course, I went and I did my homework. But how was this experience for you? Where was this filmed? That's the first thing. Where was Journey to America filmed?
This is a pilot for a TV series, and this was shot in California.
Okay. Now, how was this experience for you, being the cinematographer on this? If you can just put it in a few sentences, how did you get the job? And then, you had to fly out to wherever it was being filmed and all of that. How did that work for you?
So I've been working with a particular UPM, and that's a unit production manager. Okay. His name is Brian Robles, or Brian Robles. I think it's Robles. Yes, some pronounce it Robles, some pronounce it Robles. Anyway, Brian, really good friend of mine, and this is he has also got me onto these other TV shows that I've been working on as well. Was in the field for cinematographer for this project that was just pitched to him. So, A Journey to America, this is, like I said, a pilot for a TV show that is supposed to be pitched to Netflix, to kind of go towards this niche market of course, you hear the African accent and all that. So the African continent and Nigeria more so, looking for that, to corner a part of that market. So they are looking for a cinematographer, and Brian knows the producer, Brian knows the director that is supposed to be directing the pilot, and he threw it at me, and he was like, well, I'm going to refer you, or rather present you to these folks. I'm just going to create a meeting, and let's see if you're the best fit for the job. So mind you, this is my first time ever flying to LA. Like, I've never been to LA before. And of course, this is like the film industry mecca. I really didn't like the Hollywood flakes and feels and whatever else. So I really didn't want to be a part of that. But this is an indie project. And what I mean by that is an independently produced TV show. So it's not the big suits, it's not union, it's not Hollywood or anything like that, because I much prefer the indie way of doing things, because you have a little bit more control. It's not about the numbers, it's not about the money. It's more about, for indie, it's more about the impact, it's more about the art, it's more about the craft. So, and you get to speak on different and deeper issues, per se, in the indie realm. So, I have a portfolio of my work. It's called a reel, a cinematographer's reel. And though it was not the best representation of what I can do, I had a reel that I could have just been like, hey, this is what I have. And, we can talk about, if you allow me in a meeting, we can talk about the visual language of your work. So they sent me the script, and they set up a meeting, and we sat over coffee, and really broke, the vision of the producer, the writer-producer, and the director. We really thrashed it out over a table, and by the end of that conversation, they're like, "Well, you're hired, because you can definitely you see the vision. You can definitely replicate what it is that we want for this story. You understand the nuances of this pilot, so you got the job." So that's what happened.
and then you got and then they flew you
Well,
out.
I was already okay. So I was already in LA. I was already in LA shooting the other TV show. So just when I was finishing that TV show, Brian had gotten that script, and he's like, "I'm going to put you on to this one." So I just moved from shooting season 2 of A House Divided right into shooting that pilot.
Oh, okay. So that was a nice setup for you.
It kind of was. Kind of was.
Off, do you know if the pilot, how did it work?
So I'm still waiting to hear back. Sebastian is a very busy guy. He's running everywhere trying to sell this and to get the right people to buy into it. And he did promise to call me if it was bought, and because he wants me to shoot the entire series. So I'm like, okay, I'm just keeping all, so join me in prayer to get this bought so that I can shoot that series. But nothing has happened, and typically these things take a little bit more time. TV pilots and trying to find the right people, the right funding, the right time, location, whatever, to really sell and pitch these projects is time consuming. Let alone the fact that we have a pandemic that we're negotiating right now. So yeah.
So how was this experience different from others for you of filming? Journey to America.
I didn't have, it was very different. Why? Because I didn't have as much time to prepare for film, for production. Like I said, I was already on a TV show, which was taking up, and being on set is, it's just like this creation of a parallel universe. You literally cannot, well, at least that has been my experience. Kudos to those who are able to still lead a regular life whilst being in production. Because typically if you're working regular 10 to 12 hour days in the indie world, because you're independently doing stuff and all that, you can push the envelope a little bit. So we might end up working 14 hours or 16-hour days. So I'm already working like 12 to 14-hour days on the previous TV show. That's load in to load out. And then the script is thrown at me, and I'm like, okay, let me see what I can do off the top of my brain. So then, whatever I wrote as a treatment for them to get that, to get the conversation going, and then we continued the conversation when we had that meeting. So it was very different for me because I didn't have the time that I would like to prepare for it. We didn't necessarily have the budget that we needed in order to get it done, but that's kind of like the thing in the independent world as well. You don't always have all of the funds or all of the resources, but whatever you have, you make best use of it. So that's exactly what we did. We try to make best use of all of the resources and the time that we had. The turnover time for that project was ridiculous. It was.
I want to ask you a quick clarification question. You said that you were working 12 hours a day from load in to load out.
Okay.
For those individuals out there who are joined us and don't know the lingo, quickly explain that, please.
So there's a call time. Everyone has there's a crew call time that everyone gets on to set. So let's say we're doing this interview right now, and the time that we want to start is at 3 o'clock. So people get in at 3. So that's load in. Right, everyone gets there, the equipment gets there, blah, blah, blah. And then we want to get first shot up by 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. So like your characters, your actors, your set, everything has to be dressed, prepared, your camera set up, lights, camera, action.
And then you get into the stuff, and then the load out.
Right, load out now is when, like, where everything is done, we're all packed up and we're leaving the location. So that's what 12 hours can consist of. Or 14 hours, or 16 hours, or 18 hours, that could really be a thing.
So you just mentioned that you were just tying up with one film. Could you drop some other significant films, projects, that just drop some names that you've worked on?
This is the ridiculous part. This is why I'm still working on like a marketing department for me. Like I need.
Can I get the job?
So A House Divided, that is now in its 3rd season. We just finished shooting season 3 for A House Divided. That's on Amazon. That's kind of like the jewel of my crown right now.
Wow, that's nice.
That show. Bronx SIU has been another show that I shot not as a lead cinematographer or anything like that, but I was an operator on the shows. Other stuff that was shot, there are other smaller films, like short films, and then these pilots and ads and stuff like that. I was fortunate to work with the likes of the Prada Foundation, which I shot like an entire BTS segment for them for an art installation that was done, and it premiered in Italy. I wish that I was like invited to that, but whatever. For the likes of Apple, I did some stuff for Beats One and Apple Music, shooting some of their like up and coming artists. Some music videos that we've thrown out there for some of New York's up and coming artists and stuff like that. So there are different people, different names in these different spaces, like direct
around the block, so to speak.
I'm around. I just want to work and shoot. That's all I want to do. I just want to work and
How do you use that shoot word?
I shoot people for a living. I should have that on a t-shirt by now, but
Listen, you're entitled. You're entitled as a filmmaker, as a cinematographer. You go ahead and you keep shooting away, because we want to be reading your name big up on the screen like we are already doing, and we're proud of the work that you're doing. So for those of you who joined us late, I'm sitting here. No, I'm definitely going to use these two words interchangeably or use them at the same time. We're sitting with Yaphat Jackman, Guyanese filmmaker and cinematographer. We're going to take one last look at some more of your work, and then we'll continue the conversation to the end. Okay.
We have more work to show.
We have more work to show.
Again, it's a healthy thing, because if you have that influence, it helps on both sides. What we as Guyanese need to do is find our identity and work towards getting it strong.
Well, I think, right, it's vivid, it's clear. Even though they are so close, I think there still is a uniqueness in culture and in customs, in the way we do things. And I think, never mind, we're so close, we still like to keep our personal identity, so we stick to what we know.
Latem is the tongue fruit, right? But come out from Latem, we have the villages. And in the village, the people maintain their culture. But indeed, the people in Latem, they adapt the Brazilian culture.
We are too much of a copycat. We need to have our identity and be proud of it. Guyanese are not proud of themselves. That is what we need to work on, to develop that sense of ownership, a sense of value for the land that we live on.
Guybras. Because I was born here and grew up there in Brazil, and my husband is a Brazil, and all my children is Brazilian, so Guybras.
Guybras? But wait. I wonder how they come about.
At any border tongue or border areas, you have that influence. We have, like in the Latam area, even further this way, the Brazilian influence. And over on the Bonfim area, you would find that you have reggae and other Caribbean music, that sort of a thing, that it happens.
Yes, it does mix, but
the culture,
each other, the Brazilian Guyanese still maintain their unique identity by their culture.
I am Donna Ambrose. I am 100% Guyanese, and I'm proud to be Guyanese.
It may seem as if the culture blend within the border tongue of Latam has changed a lot of persons, but one thing is for sure, change is inevitable.
Yaphat, you took me to Lethem. I've never gone to Lethem, so thank you.
You're welcome.
You've taken me to Lethem. This documentary was filmed in Lethem, the ninth of 10 regions in Guyana. So for those of us who need a refreshers, and for those of you who don't know, Lethem is found in the Upper Takatu, Upper Essequibo region of Ghana. And in this documentary, we just heard the former Guyanese Vice President and Minister of Indigenous Peoples Affairs encouraging the indigenous people to keep their identity. Watching this documentary done 10 years ago was quite an eye-opener for me, I gotta tell you, because I never knew that these issues of identity existed in Lethem because of the migration of the people between Guyana and Brazil, so to speak. So what knowledge have you gained about Guyana? And I'm saying about Guyana because of what unfolded in the piece that we watched. What knowledge did you gain about Guyana from doing this documentary? Obviously, that part of Guyana.
Yeah. This is quite the blast from the past. Looking back at some of this stuff, it's like, wait, wow, this has been so long. Oh yeah, we did that. The Guyanese has somehow found a way to assimilate to every other thing around them faster than, you know, their own. And with being on a border like Lethem, Bumfing, those areas where there's, you know, your own country is lacking in infrastructure, lacking in so many things that is not necessarily providing these services that you need because you're like in these outskirts. And, you know, the people now chose to just to walk over a bridge. That's all they had to do, just walk over a bridge to a whole other country, and was able to access things faster, to get more services from that country. Why? Because Brazil, on the Brazil end, and to of course, as you would have heard, to coin the word Guy Braz. So then investigate, after doing that documentary, is really to investigate more now of what is it to be Guyanese? What is uniquely ours, apart from our flag and the fact that we're the only English-speaking country in the continent? Like, what are the things that we can throw out there, point to, culturally, musically, you know, physically, as cloth or anything that's tangible that we can point to and say that's Guyanese? You know, these we have those stories. They're hidden. For some reason or the other, we're now rediscovering ourselves as to who we are and what we represent, what kind of history we have and what we come from. So it was very interesting to know the struggle of our First Peoples, you know, in that area, and the struggles that they were having living there, and, you know, what they would call themselves at the end of the day, because, you know, they're gaining more from a Brazilian culture because of the lack of our own infrastructure as Guyanese for them. So they see themselves more as Brazilian than Guyanese, you know. So it was of course, to see, you know, once we were done with the documentary, the hope was, you know, that we show it to your folks at USAID, show it to folks at the World Bank, show it to people, and just say, well, hey, you know, these are the kinds of conversations we should be having on a larger scale, you know, a more national level, to ensure that we're maintaining our peoples and we're taking care of our peoples. You know, to provide more access, to provide more infrastructure, to provide all of these things that is their right as a Guyanese native, you know, and not have to dilute or to augment their own existence by gaining or reaping from another country. You know, that can easily, because they're a whole lot more developed, they have, you know, a couple more things put in place for their people and all that. So easily they could be, oh, we have an easier life over here. And they could just step over and, you know, we would never know that they'd be gone. So yeah, it was an eye opener for me at that time. You know, even the struggle of getting to where we needed to be to shoot that, it was.
Yeah, you know, again, I want to encourage viewers to really check out Yaphat Jackman's work on Vimeo, because you'll see more of these more of these clips that we've played here. Very, very educational and insightful coverage of his work. I'm wondering, what are you hoping to accomplish in doing, especially documentaries? And I am asking that because from what I researched, most of your documentaries are done in Guyana or about Guyana. In a couple of sentences, what are you hoping to accomplish with doing documentaries in Guyana, on Guyana, for Guyana?
Basically to repackage the information. You know, all of this information I had to learn about through reading. You know, I was sitting in a history class at UG, you know, trying to get some information. Okay. For people that really know me, I dislike reading. Reading is very passive to me. So for me to now be able to translate this information and put it in a visual scape, a more, I guess, a more educational, what we coined recently, edutainment, you know, type of product that can transcend time. You know, it's now a new visual reference. You know, we don't have to go boxing in between books and bookworms and all that. Now we can click on a link and look at what it is that's being exactly point, click, and view. Yeah. So the idea is to really disseminate the information to open up the doors of the access to the information that has been locked away in books and libraries and archives and all that stuff. It's to really dig all of that stuff out, to digitize it now in this new age that we're in, and to change it into now a more this media platform, this new media that we can break it into as well. So it's just really sharing that information so that people know who we are, what we represent, where we come from, you know, where we've been, where we're going, and you know, and the like.
And what an awesome job you're doing.
I thank you.
But guess what? We can't wrap this up without me asking you about your pet project, Ben Street Films. Tell us about your company. It's an LLC. Tell us about Ben Street Films.
Ben Street Films, you know, it's just a representation of that 8-year-old boy that was sitting and looking at HBO and wanting to now change the scope, change the realm. So the LLC, the company, is a, you know, consultancy and media production company that is just working towards creating opportunities for young filmmakers like myself or content creators that don't have the luxury. I'm using the privilege that I was given to open up doors of access for people that may have been underprivileged or don't have that kind of access to now develop their skills and to have opportunities and platforms to express, to show, to exhibit their own work as well. So, you know, coupled with that, it's working with companies and you know, organizations, with individuals that also want to create awesome visual work, you know. So if you want to visualize anything, you know, ads, documentaries, you know, portfolios, whatever, but more so anything around storytelling as well, you know, that's what Ben Street does. But Ben Street seems to be taking this shift into social activism and and developmental work, because, you know, the 48-hour film challenge, as you may or may not have heard of, it's taking a new face now. You know, it's only 2 years old. It's about to be 3 next year. It's something that I want to do more often. I just don't want it to be an annual thing. But it's also, again, creating these platforms for our youths that don't have the access to go to an NCN and say, well, show my stuff, or to go to Movie Town or to Guyana Cinemas or anything like that and say, hey, this is my work, this is what's going on. To all of the TV stations that are there, you know, we're still trying to break the backward model of going to a TV station and paying them to show your work when it's supposed to be the other way around, because they have content that they need to be showing. So it's and it's also developing the industry. It's developing the practitioners to move from here to here with concerns of their business ethic, their visual aesthetic, and presentation.
But this is a much needed intervention. I'm going to say intervention, because the young filmmakers, the up and coming filmmakers, they're lost. And I think with the installation of Ben Street Films that leads and also provides some direction with respect to how you behave as a budding filmmaker, you know, or if you want to be an entrepreneur, these are some of the things you have to look for. If you want to be a leader in the space, these are some of the behaviors you need to learn and exhibit. I think all of these things in one make it critical. All of these things in one makes it critical for the young people in Guyana. And I'm glad that you're paying it forward, you know, and it really speaks to what this program is about also, passing information on to others, whether it's generational or if it's just the next person, by teaching them something new. I learned today the difference between a filmmaker and a cinematographer, you know, as much as I was making wisecrack about it, I never sat to think that there was a difference between them until I was speaking with you. And I know that there'll be many other, you know, takeaways from this discussion that we've had today. I want to ask you quickly, what message do you have for youth who would like to venture into the film industry?
Stick to your guns, like stick to your dream. Just work, take every opportunity that you're afforded to develop yourself. Never think that the experiences that you're gaining in Guyana is unworthy or is not up to par. It was because of the experiences that I had in Guyana that I was able to excel in the US. Like I am a force to reckon with when I'm on set. Because I stand out, like everyone sees me and is like, where is this guy from? What is this about? The work ethic is different, you know, the ingenuity is different, the innovation is different, the imagination is different, because, you know, Guyanese have this innate ingenious string of DNA. Like we're always figuring out a way to either short circuit the system or to work around a problem or anything like that, with some very ingenious, sometimes crazy inventions and ways, but it works. It becomes we're always problem solvers. So, you know, I took that was already embedded in my through my cultural experiences and through growing up in Guyana, and like able to apply that in a very real way in the industry. So just learn all that you can learn. Every experience that you are gaining currently will come to your rescue, and you may think that it makes no sense that you're going through whatever it is that you're going through now, but it's really gonna help build your character, it's gonna help build your skills, and you just gotta keep focused on your work. Yeah.
What a way to end. I want to say thank you very much,
Thank you,
Jackman, for coming through and being here with me and talking about your journey as a filmmaker and cinematographer. For more information on Yaphat's work, please visit Ben Street Films on Facebook And please look for Yaphat Jackman on Vimeo. But before closing, I would like to remind all of you that Guyana Cultural Association is really working up to the last few events that will be held virtually through the Zoom platform this week. And on Wednesday, the 2nd of September, it's the award ceremony. Check our Facebook page. Come to my Kwekways on Friday. Yay! Come. Check the Facebook page. Family Fun Days on Sunday, September 6th. Check the Facebook page for more information. And I also want to say to those of you who have heeded the cause and sent your donations, thank you, thank you, thank you. For those of you who have not, please send your donations. Yes, we do have a donation button like everybody else. And please tell your friends to send donations because we're celebrating our 20th year. And we never envisioned that it would have been virtually, but nonetheless, we understand that we have to stay the course and we're bringing our programs to you virtually. But as I say, thanks to you, Yaphat Jackman, and to you, the viewers who came through today on Arts, Culture, and Things in Between, I must acknowledge some important individuals. Claire Goring, she does that lovely flyer every week since the program started in May, and we didn't know where we were going. Here we are, you know, at the end of August, and we're still going one foot in front of the other. Marcia Gordon, who's worked on the YouTube channel. Kudos, Marcia. Yasu Narayan, who's working on the website. Things are happening for Arts, Culture, and Things in Between. And Dr. Raul Manzano, who is an artist who was featured on this program, actually painted the logo. Ask for more. So I thank you. But you know what? There's a man who is above all of us here. And you know the man, Yaphat, is Mr. Raul De Silva of RDE Pros, our technical engineer. Raul, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, these are individuals who are special because of their unselfishness. Yeah. Of giving their time and their service. So Claire, Marcia, Yash, Dr. Manzano, Raul, and to you, Yaphat, thank you for everything that you've done and for allowing us to see your work and to hear you speak about your work. I cannot thank you enough. And to you, the viewership who make it happen, thank you for your continuous support. There's some of you who keep coming back and commending and appreciating and thanking. We thank you too. So as we go into this, what we call the weekend, the last week, I guess, of summer, right? Because Labor Day marks the end of summer. I want to wish you all the best. Please note, next week, Sunday, Arts, Culture, and Things in Between will not be on because of the festivities for the Guyana Folk Festival. The Family Fun Day will be happening next week, Sunday. So we'll see you in 2 Sundays, but I'm sure we'll see each other between now and then. We'll see each other for the remainder of the week, I'm sure. On that note, Yaphat, thank you. I appreciate you very much. And to you viewers out there, thanks again. Bye-bye. Please be safe as you have your enjoyment with whatever festivities you will indulge in. Bye for now.
Take care.